Hey everybody, welcome to Active Self-Protection Extra. Today, another news story for us to talk about. I saw this story on State Line. It was back in April. It's been sitting in my queue to do. I thought I'd do it now. It's titled, States Move to Outlaw Popular Glock Switches That Make Some Guns Fully Automatic. And interestingly enough, it says police recovered 4,530 machine gun conversion devices at crime scenes in 2023, and a bunch of states are moving to outlaw them. Let's talk about it. Henry Holsters is one of our trusted holster providers at Active Self-Protection. From the Enigma Easy button to their light-bearing Ember, their ambidextrous Cypher, and their AIWB or IWB Spark and more, they make high-quality holsters for many popular firearms. Go check them out at the link in the description. Now, the interesting part to me is if you go read this news story, it's free on the internet. I put a link to it in the description. I'd recommend that you read it. I will tell you that the states that are enacting these bans are largely conservative states. There's Alabama has just enacted this. Georgia is doing some of those things, or at least trying to, right? There's a lot of bipartisan support for these particular ones. So really, what is this talking about? Well, there's a little bitty device. Man, you could freaking buy them on Temu, for goodness sakes. Now, only if you want the feds to show up at your house. Don't do this, right? And it replaces the backplate on a Glock, and it turns it into there's a little button on it that is an auto sear, that basically, instead of one trigger press causing one firing of the gun, which makes it a semi-automatic gun, it drops the sear again. So one trigger press will unload the entire magazine unless you let the trigger go. I've shot a legit Glock 18, not a 17 with an auto sear, giggle switch on the back, like a legit had a selector switch on the side, imported by Glock for law enforcement demonstration. I've had a friend who had an FFL with an SOT that had one at the BDC gun room in Oklahoma and let me shoot it. Super fun, right? And I will tell you also, I've got a bunch of friends. I live in Phoenix, Arizona. I got a bunch of friends who are on Phoenix PD and other PDs in the Valley, and they're finding idiots and gangbangers with Glock switches a bunch, right? And this is really kind of because of the kind of uniqueness of the way that the Glock firing system is done. I haven't seen it with any other manufacturer. I've only ever seen it with Glock pistols, and they're finding gangbangers with Glock giggle switches left and right. Especially and particularly because they could be 3D printed. And yeah, you can order them on Temu, but you don't even need to do that anymore. The internet is a big place and free speech matters. And so you can find the 3D print diagrams for them online. And then if you have a 3D printer, print one up and those 3D printed switches work. And I don't want you to do that. More and more states are outlawing them. They're already illegal on a federal level because if you install that on a Glock, you've created a machine gun. And since the Hughes Amendment in 1986, you can't register a machine gun anymore. There are no new machine guns allowed on the NFA machine gun list. So the second you create one, you now have a fully automatic firearm that is not registered as a machine gun under the National Firearms Act. You are a federal felon and you are going to go and eat federal baloney for a number of years, like a decade or more. Of course, the challenge is that the feds sometimes don't prosecute, and they certainly don't prosecute minors, and a lot of these gang folks are under 18. And so a bunch of states are enacting state-level laws to make them illegal at the state level. Okay, and that's really what this news story says, right? So the interesting thing to me is how many of them they're recovering at crime scenes because of the advent of 3D printing, right? An interesting statistic in the article, between 2019 and 2023, conversion devices made up nearly 13% of all privately made firearms recovered by police and traced by the Bureau. 11,000 out of 88,000 total. That's a huge number. Machine gun conversion devices themselves traced by the ATF, there were 1,500 in 2021, 2,900 in 2022, 5,800 in 2023. So it's definitely going up quite a bit. And I mean, this is the kind of stuff from the Gun Control Act of, the National Firearms Act of 1934. This has been happening, or the Gun Control Act of 68, right? Some really interesting stuff. So what does this mean for you and me? I mean, as regular good folks that aren't putting giggle switches on Glocks, nothing. Quite frankly, I wouldn't put a giggle switch on a Glock that I carried for personal defense, even if it was legal, because I have fired a Glock 18 and they're completely uncontrollable. You can't hit the broadside of a barn. You couldn't hit your butt with both hands if somebody drew you a map with a giggle switch on a Glock. That's just the honest truth of things, okay? It is spray and pray at the highest level. It turns a Glock into like 1,000 round per minute. So you've got a very brief burst out of a 17 round mag or even a 30 round stick, and it's just completely uncontrollable. So I wouldn't. Now that said, I'm kind of a Second Amendment absolutist. So I think the Hughes Amendment should be done away with. I think that fully automatic firearms, I think the intent of the Second Amendment is that every American should be able to muster up with their militia at time of need. And that means that the average American should be equipped as an infantryman, should be as equipped as your average infantryman. And that no infantryman in the United States or anywhere else goes to war with a semi-automatic firearm. And so the intent of the Second Amendment, as it was written, was to be able to muster up to defend hearth, home, and an area. And so I think we should be able to own fully automatic firearms. I don't have an SOT myself, so I don't own any fully automatic firearms. They're too expensive for me. They're $30,000, $40,000, and I just don't have that kind of money to own full auto guns. But they're fun and they're cool, and I'd love to own more of them. I kind of see this as a non-issue. I also see it's, just adding problems to people. Like, listen, if they're doing gangbanger stuff, put them away for the gangbanger stuff. I see it as a big nothing burger, but I don't know. What do you think? Do you think that it's smart for the states? I think kind of, as a state level crime to be able to say, hey, wait a minute, having a fully automatic gun that's not compliant with the National Firearms Act, we want the ability to deal with that in state court as well, because the feds do things on their own time. That makes sense to me. At the same time, I don't love it because I'm kind of a Second Amendment absolutist. And at the same time, I think a Glock switch is stupid and I don't see any use for it. I don't know. What are your thoughts?